फुल स्क्रीन मोड नहीं आ रहा है.
Yeah, I'll just do it right now. Did you get it?
ठीक है. Now Anjali ma'am, you can take over the session as chairperson. Please start.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So a very good morning to one and all. And I, Dr. Anjali Sharma, Assistant Professor English, Department of Applied Sciences and Humanities, Rajiv Gandhi Government Engineering College, Kangra. I welcome you all for today's first technical session. As we all know, today's session is about the paradigms in multidisciplinary research, and we have with us Dr. Kamalpreet Kaur to share her insights on the topic. We all welcome you, ma'am. So before we begin with today's session, let me take this opportunity to briefly introduce our guest speaker for the session, Dr. Kamalpreet Kaur. Dr. Kaur has done her master's in environmental science and solid waste management from Punjab University and her PhD in environmental science again from Punjab University. She is an independent researcher on environmental sustainability and has published a lot of research studies on the topic. She is a certified impact analyst assessing businesses for their sustainability impact. Talking of her achievements, Dr. Kaur has undertaken research on the global crop residuals in India and California and has partnered with the local organizations to drive sustainability initiatives. As a principal scientist climate change, he managed to secure a grant of rupees 189 million, which was used for a project that was focused on climate resilient livestock production in the state of Punjab. He has been a part of Global Climate Summit in San Francisco in 2018 and has been a life member of National Environmental Science Academy, New Delhi. We all feel honored to have such a renowned personality as our guest speaker for the day. So without much ado, I now request Dr. Kamalpreet Kaur to share her insights with us. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali, for the introduction, and thank you, Dr. Meenakshi, for giving me this opportunity to share some insights related to the interdisciplinary research. Good morning, everyone. As Dr. Anjali has already given the introduction, my name is Kamalpreet Kaur, and in today's session, I'll be talking broadly about the paradigms in the interdisciplinary research. So this presentation is basically more focused towards the research side, but it does include a few insights into the academic disciplines also. So let's start with the presentation. Let's begin it with this quote by the famous economist, who is also a Nobel laureate, Dr. Robert Shiller. It says, in the longer run and for wide-reaching issues, more creative solutions tend to come from imaginative interdisciplinary collaborations. And in today's words, it's really important to conduct a lot of studies that are interdisciplinary in nature as compared to the traditional methods. So in this presentation, I'll be covering a lot on the concepts of interdisciplinary research, what are the different categories, what are the basic main barriers that are in between these interdisciplinary research. We try to provide you with some solutions and certain tips that could help you in overcoming those barriers. And we'll end this presentation with a few takeaways, and let's start with the background. So as we all are, so we have a designated, I guess, Dr. Meenakshi, we have a designated question answer round at the end of this presentation, right?
Yes.
Right. So I think we can, if anyone have questions during these presentations, we can always discuss in the end. So in the presentation, first is let's talk about the basics of, or the basic terminology that is usually used in the research field. In the traditional approach, as we all know, that we are more focused on conducting the research related or specific to our particular disciplines. So we are more oriented towards designing the projects or solving the research problems that are related, that are subject specific, because it is more convenient to secure the grant and easily accessible to work on different methodologies and different, and to design the project, work on different methodologies and find the particular outcomes out of those projects. The other terminology that is commonly used under this under the research category is the multidisciplinary approach. It basically means you have one common research problem, but there are many disciplines that are focusing on that research problem together. They kind of working like individually on their own, but they have one common question that needs to be answered at the end of the project tenure. However, in case of interdisciplinary research, which is our main focus today, it somehow relates to the multidisciplinary, but it mainly focuses on integration of those disciplines, right? Rather than in multidisciplinary, all the disciplines, they are focusing on their own about the one research problem. In interdisciplinary research, it's like all the disciplines, they are coming together, they're integrating together, like focusing, looking at each other's work while solving one common problem. So there had been a number of definitions that are proposed to define the interdisciplinary research, but the most commonly adopted definition was given by National Academy of Sciences in 2004. Just for the convenience sake, I'll be using the acronym IDR throughout the presentation for interdisciplinary research, just to make it clear before. So the definition says it is interdisciplinary research, or IDR. It is a mode of research by teams or individuals that integrates the information, tools, perspectives from one or more than one discipline, like from not one, two or more than two disciplines, to advance the understanding of the knowledge, to advance such knowledge about particular issue, or to solve a particular problem and find a solution through a integrated research practice. So this is the main, I'll be talking about this term more elaboratively as we move ahead through the presentation. Just to show it in a very interesting way, I can explain the difference between all the research approaches, thinking this as a food, thinking the different disciplines as a food. So imagine that if you are using the traditional approach, where every discipline is working on their own research problem or research problem alone. So how does it look? It will look simply just like a plain bread slice. It might not have all the flavors in it. So talking about different flavors, the flavors here represent, in the research language, it represents what is the diversity of material that you are using on your bread loaf, on your bread slice. What research are you doing into those materials? What is the research into the process? Is there any diversity of research, or is there any integration of different fields? So if you are eating just a plain slice of bread, you might have done research that this type of bread is good for you, and I know why this type of bread is good for me, but you don't have knowledge about the diversity and the integration, that how you can make this bread slice more flavorful. And in the multidisciplinary, you kind of add few flavors into your bread loaves to make a good sandwich, maybe like aloo tikki and few salad slices, few cheese slices. You just layer it one on top of the other. But there is a diversity in it, in multidisciplinary. There is an integration of different fields, but the integration is not up to a greater extent. You have added these sauces, different sauce and different flavors into your sandwich to make it look like a multidisciplinary, and to make it look like flavorful. but those sauces, they have not soaked into different layers of your sandwich, the integration, and that you cannot get the full flavor of your sandwich, or to make it the best sandwich you want to eat. However, in interdisciplinary, all the components, all the flavors are nicely merged into each other. There is a full integration into each other. There is diversity of material. There is diversity of research uh, that could be helpful in making that sandwich or that burger the best burger that you want to taste. So I hope you kind of understand the difference between the traditional research approaches and the one we are going to discuss in today's presentation. And this traditionally how these disciplines are categorized. So as we all are in the academic, from the academic background, so you all are aware that we usually have super disciplines, right? In a traditional category, we usually say that we have the natural and applied sciences field, and second category of social sciences and humanities field. So these super disciplines in the natural and applied sciences, they are more oriented towards the empirical knowledge development, like more towards the quantitative assessment of different issues or different factors, assessing the quantitative research problems. However, the second superdiscipline, social sciences and humanities, it uses qualitative techniques to study different aspects of human society or different economical issues or different social economical issues. In IDR or interdisciplinary, we usually categorize our research into three main categories. So first, and we use the term like interdisciplinary distance, just to understand how far your research project is, how far means how diverse is your interdisciplinary research project would be. So in the three categories, first includes when there is like almost no distance between the discipline, just like a zoologist working in collaboration with a botanist. They are both from the natural and applied sciences field, and those fields are almost originated all together, and there is almost no distance, and it is kind of like within the discipline. So first category is within the discipline, and second is the short distance discipline, that is within the super discipline, like an engineer working with the biologist. Here I want to quote my example of like my PhD example. During my research in my PhD, I work on a topic of like assessing the environmental impacts of dumping sites, like waste disposal sites. For that, I assess the environmental impacts, how the dumping site is affecting the agriculture sector, agriculture crops, where I need to work with the botany department. I also assess the impact of dumping sites on the groundwater department, where I need to contact the uh, geography department or geology department also. I also worked in collaboration with chemistry and chemical engineering department to perform my experiments. I also worked with PGI, School of Public Health, to undertake the study in order to understand the occupational health hazards among the waste workers in the Chandigarh city. So my research was an interdisciplinary research, and it falls under this category of short distance. And the last category is the long distance, which is essentially required and which is often ignorant, but it is somehow gaining momentum slowly, like an ecologist working with a social scientist, or a physicist working with an economist. So in the interdisciplinary distance, we have these three broader categories that is usually used to understand the complexity of project or complexity of the disciplines that you are introducing into your project or into your research studies. Talking about the academic disciplines, so you all are aware that in academics, all the disciplines operates as hierarchy, right? So there is one discipline that is at top of the pyramid, and then there are other disciplines that lies beyond each other. And just to quote the examples, so we all are aware that in our country, we do have a lot of competitive exams. Take the example of the PMT exam. So there is a hierarchical system, right? And there is a system that is developed, which indicates or which kind of shows that if you score this certain marks in your entrance exam, you'll get the MBBS seats. And if you score little lesser score marks, you'll get seats in BDS and then BMS and all that stuff. So in all the academic front, in all the admissions in colleges, universities, basically the system academic principle or academic disciplines operates on the basis of hierarchy. And although the relationship between those disciplines could be intellectual, or in some cases it is political also. How IDR or interdisciplinary research is seen under the academics? It is basically seen as families sharing gene pools. So we know that quantum physics originated from the physics department. Biotechnology might originate from the biotechnology department, or biotechnology subject might have originated from the zoology or botany subject. So all in all, when you look at from the perspective of interdisciplinary research, it is basically seen as families sharing gene pools. And when you draw together all these different disciplines in a creative way, they could yield a very good results in terms of inculcating those information or inculcating the education about interdisciplinary subjects among students, or in terms of conducting or performing the research studies that could essentially answer the real world problems. So why do we stress a lot more on the interdisciplinary research these days? As we all are aware, we are seeing that there are a number of even newly emerging global issues that cannot be addressed by one single discipline, or all the disciplines, if they are working individually, they cannot help in addressing those issues. So it is required that interdisciplinary research should work collaboratively in order to respond, in order to address those concerns. Let me share a few examples with you. Like, first and foremost is the climate change. You all are aware that climate change does not need any, the climate doesn't need any geographical boundaries. It is not that it is the climate change problem is just the problem of India or just the problem of USA or problem of Canada. The climate change is global. All the impacts could be foreseen throughout the world. There could be areas or geographical locations where there are floods, there are areas where there could be desertification. And all these environmental issues are not only the problem of environmental scientists or climate change scientists. They are of concerns to the political scientists also. They are of concern to the agriculture scientists also. They are of concern to the economists also, because one way or the other, it is somehow going to affect the economies around the world. It is going to lead to increasing number of health issues also. So the idea behind finding, mitigation solutions for the climate change, all the stakeholders, like the stakeholders from different backgrounds, from different disciplines, need to come together in order to find a suitable solution, or in order to adapt to the climate change. Here, the importance of IDR really comes in. Similarly, in war and politics, I mean, when there is a war between two nations, it's not just about a simple fight or simple destructions. It is about the lives, that are being affected. It is could lead to hunger and poverty. It could lead to political debates. It may lead to some hazardous, chemical leakages, health impacts. So all and those war and politics issues could be solved just only through the idea approach only, not only one discipline or one discipline or one stakeholder could help in solving this issue. And the foremost example is, you all have seen it recently, about the COVID pandemic. It might have originated from one particular country, but how it has affected the globe, and what actions the different countries have taken in order to tackle with this pandemic. There was a race. I mean, I won't call it a race. The health department workers, they work on treating the patients. The political background people, they are kind of finding the strategies that during the lockdown, how do you smoothen the process that the supply chains are not affected, that the food is coming consistently to every door, right? How the vaccines are procured, how the vaccines are distributed in particular nation. So all these actions require the interdisciplinary approach. So that here comes, I mean, that really indicates that how IDR could play an important role in solving any research issue or any global issue. How it can help, so again, it can provide, if you are working in an integrated environment, if you're working in an interdisciplinary environment, you'll get greater opportunities and support to work on the problem that might be of interest to you. You may get support with acquiring funding. Maybe the discipline from where you come from might not have easy accessibility to grants or funding, and the other person with whom you are trying to collaborate, they have more access to funds, they have more resources. So it can help with support of acquiring funding, support with promoting your research and organizing events. You can publish your work in international or any peer-reviewed journals if we are working together. I mean, it should not be essentially the journals of your own discipline, but there are interdisciplinary journals that are highly cited and that are peer-reviewed. And you'll also get access to wider network for external stakeholders, industries, policymakers, NGOs that could help you in the near future if you plan to undertake any other study. So you have this handful of resources in your hand, so that could be easily accessible to you once you are under this kind of environment of IDR or interdisciplinary research. This is one of the graph I would like to share with you. This is a study conducted by Bolger very recently in 2021. He kind of conducted a survey among the faculty members. So these are all institutes in USA. Most of the institutes, they work in the sustainability and environmental research. And just to get the faculty view, they kind of conducted this survey, and they find out that most of the faculty, they are interested in undertaking these studies or research studies that are interdisciplinary in nature. About like more than 40% is there, but you can see there is still a lot of there is still a lot of reluctance among like getting out of the comfort zone and working in any interdisciplinary project or in a multidisciplinary project. So why this reluctance is there? So we'll talk about it under the category of the barriers or the hurdles. First and the foremost concerns that researchers highlight is that the interdisciplinary projects are often ad hoc, means they are not permanent. They are not sure about like if this project tenure is 1 year, will this project get enough funding? Will this project could be sustained for the next 5 years, 10 years, or could it be used? This type of projects could be used in setting the foundations of a new research center or setting the foundations of an interdisciplinary center. So this is one of the major barriers that most of the researchers feel, that it is not permanent. It is kind of like ad hoc, and it is difficult to sustain the culture of IDR in the current environment. And there are fuzzy boundaries that lead to conflict. I mean, if there are 5 or 6 disciplines that are working together, so there could be a lot of conflict, a lot of nuance that could be created, which because there are no clearly demarcated roles that needs to be that are assigned, which creates the fuzzy boundaries and lead to contradictions and conflicts. And moreover, the most important, based on my experiences, I feel that there is lack of understanding on how to best develop the idea, because we have never been in this, we have never experienced this culture. You know, we're not experienced, I would say we have never been taught the about the interdisciplinary research culture. We do have access, like when we were in the academics, we do have the opportunity to learn different subjects, but that interdisciplinary education was not significant, that it could, you know, that it could like help you in thinking and paving your ways towards the interdisciplinary research future. There is lack of clarification of primary goals. There could be a lot of confusion between like what could be the objectives of the research problems you might have identified. Certain disciplines would want to highlight their own objectives more. Other disciplines want to highlight their objectives more. So the lack of clarification is one of the major concerns that most of the faculty or the researchers feel. And of course, if there is lack of clarification, I mean, if there are not clearly demarcated boundaries, there will be a lot of disagreements and inability to gain consensus. So these are some of the major hurdles that researchers often say that they face while working in the interdisciplinary environment. But we do have the solutions. So what can be done in order to address those conflicts and address those barriers? So we should think IDR or the interdisciplinary research paradigm, that it should be a viable, that it should be feasible for all the disciplines, that where they can all come together and find a common ground to address the problem. And the most important role could be of the institutions. The institution can develop the suitable resources, suitable structures and practices that could, you know, provide training, formal training to the researchers, how to operate in IDR kind of environment. They should also, institutes can also help in providing sufficient time, allocating resources, and transaction costs. Project transaction costs here does not only mean the money, it also include the process of learning about other disciplines when you are working together and on one common problem. Moreover, so if I'll be discussing more elaboratively on these 10 tips that could really help as an individual researcher or as an organization to work and to, you know, take care of the issues that might arise while you're working in the IDR projects or IDR research. So the study by Kelly et al., they have provided these 10 tips. They said if we follow these 3 broad ideas for the idea, it will really help in like sustaining your interdisciplinary research programs. First is about what you should really know when you are working in the idea culture. What perspectives you should gain, what should be your attitude while working in the idea, and what practices you should adopt during the idea projects. So the first one is develop an area of expertise. As you know, oddly contrasting this may sound, but if you have the core understanding of your subject, you can lay a solid foundation and clear objectives and identify your clear role in an interdisciplinary project. That will not only show your confidence, but will also indicate your competency. And you can have a stronghold over the, you know, clearly identified role over the project that you are working together. So first and the foremost important is developing your area of expertise from the discipline from which you are coming on. Second is learning new languages. IDR essentially requires language which is easily understandable by all the disciplines you're working together with. Traditionally, we come from, we are trained to use a particular jargon that we have in our discipline, and that jargon could be really conflicting for the other disciplines to understand. The complex terms and terminologies could be really difficult for the other disciplines to understand. So the idea behind this, like it's not about learning all the terminology or the complex terminology, but the idea is to at least understand the terms. Like that could be done by listening, asking questions, more listening. And apart from it, if you keep on organizing a lot of interdisciplinary training workshops, try to attend workshops and training programs of other disciplines also, just to, if you are interested in IDR. And you could also learn new skills through different communication skills, using different metaphors and different analogies that could help in acquiring the new skills of learning about different disciplines. Coming to the second major category of attitudes, what perspectives you might help to work under the IDR culture is be open-minded. If you're working in IDR, there is a lot of diversity in it. You should be open to the idea of learning, open to the idea of taking, integrating new ideas, open to the idea of working academically within the academic front or or in non-academic front. So having an open-minded could really help in, changing your perspectives, and would help to encourage you to contribute more towards the project. And this is the foremost important under the idea. It could be really frustrating when different disciplines could not reach a common ground. So patience is the key that in the idea thing. And because idea, it is a learning cycle, and all the transaction time can lengthen because the collaborators might need more time to understand about each other's disciplinary cultures, different languages, and approaches. So it is essential that sufficient time should be allocated, for iterative cycles of learning and reflection across all the research processes. And being patient, it will allow everyone to learn, everybody to learn. So that is the fourth major tip. Fifth is embracing complexity. Here is, we should not see complexity as a roadblock. Rather, we should see complexity as an opportunity, because more you understand about the complex ideas, more stimulating it would be for you. The more stimulating it would be for you, more you would be able to, answer and work on that particular research problem in a creative or more diverse way. So embracing complexity is the other tip that is under the part of your perspectives or attitudes. And then is collaborate widely. Collaborate widely here doesn't mean that you need to work together with 10 disciplines or 15 disciplines. Collaborate widely here means that you should be present throughout the research project. It should not be the research project, and your role in the research project should not be like a relay race, that you should not run to a particular distance and then hand over the baton to the other discipline. And then the other discipline would say that I have done my part, now I'm handing over the baton to the other discipline. It should be a collaborative one. You should be present at every process and every stage of the project. And that could really help in integrating all the ideas throughout the process and achieving the desired objectives. Seventh is the pushing your boundaries. you should be able to make attempts. They could be, small, they could be big attempts. But when you get out of your comfortable zone and you deliberately expose yourself to novel perspectives, opinions, and ideas, so there is a lot that you could contribute to it. Just want to share my personal experience here. Like, I come from the environmental science background. I do have knowledge about different subjects of super discipline, but I never really had the expertise or like the knowledge of working in the second category of super discipline, that is under the humanities subject. When I moved to US, I realized that the work culture here uh, the work culture here is mostly corporate, and it does use the terminology that is related to economics and finance background. So I decided to study the one program in environmental policy uh, that does have a lot of economics and finance subject in it, which I find it really difficult because all those terminologies were new to me. But at the end of the day, today, if I work together in any of the corporates for a sustainability project, when I sit in the meeting, if they use certain terms like EBITDA, CBA that I was not aware before, it helped me in understanding of those terms. So I was not comfortable in learning new skills, but it's not that necessary that you should be learning new subjects. But it depends on your comfort level. At least learning or like listening, attending a workshop could be really helpful in getting the idea or the basic concept of particular subject that could be essentially required under that particular idea project. So if you can push your boundaries, that could help in changing your perspective and give you more opportunities for collaborations. Consider if and how. Um, it's it's understood that interdisciplinary career paths will not appeal to everyone, nor they need to be. But it is important that you identify your personal aspirations, your skills, and to consider whether this interdisciplinary research aligns with your career and personal goals. So you should need to consider if and how before participating in any idea project. Ninth is basically a tip for the institutions, the higher education institution or the research institutions, that says that they should foster the interdisciplinary culture. So the institutional leaders, they can work together to adapt internal culture within their organizations to ensure that idea is valued and relevant resources are allocated, and that the formal training and recognition is being given those who are working in the idea sector. So and also ensuring that even the students in the academic disciplines, they are also getting access to the information or the practices that are being adopted under the idea programs. And the last and the often ignorant tip is rewarding the researchers. If someone in your zone, in your, I would say, institute or under your discipline, they have done some work that is idea and that really addresses the complex national issue or a global issue, you should reward them. Rewarding them doesn't mean only monetary, but just giving them the recognition and acknowledgement of their contributions could be really motivating for them, as well as for the other researchers or the early career researchers or the students, those who are looking, at them. So rewarding the researcher is another approach that could be useful. And so this research study basically says that these steps 1 to 8 are basically suggested for the intermediate and early career researchers, and the last 9th and 10th are basically addressed for the institutes and for the senior level academicians and the researchers. And out of this, when they conducted this survey, they found that the most discussed tip among the and during the interdisciplinary research, the most important number of tips were the first was the 9, fostering the interdisciplinary culture. 7th, collaborate widely, and then embracing complexity, and then 2nd, learning new languages. And one of the most ignorant and least discussed tip was rewarding the researchers. So I find this, infographic really interesting. That could really help you in like gaining some perspectives about the IDR and how you could contribute based on your personal skills. And once you gain those the essential skills while working in the IDR environment, how should that paradigm look? That paradigm should focus on 4 C's: compromise, consistency, creativity, and collegiality. And the research problem is identified through leadership. Leadership, where the experts from different disciplines, they really come together and sit together to find out the research problem, and they perform the research design and methods by finding different opportunities to collaborate, not only within the disciplines, but going out of the academics or out of the disciplines, like into the real world to work on the research design and methods, and getting the sufficient support, resources, grants for performing the data analysis or conducting the research. And those team of investigators, when they work together, they will be able to find the research outcomes and able to identify this research problem. So the key takeaways that I would say for this presentation was that creating a culture of interdisciplinary is essential, and it could be done through internal and social reinforcements, different communication, behavior change, innovation and diffusion, organizing different training programs, conducting more brainstorming sessions, and encouraging the new students or the early career researchers to, inculcate the ideas of interdisciplinary into their work or into their studies. That could be really important. All in all, in the end, I would just like to say that interdisciplinary research need to be recognized as a legitimate method that is really worthy of, funding, teaching, and leading to a new research area. So that's all I have for the presentation. And this is just on a lighter note. Ideas should not ever, never be like this. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your valuable thoughts. Since most of the people nowadays are opting for interdisciplinary research, so your talk has surely provided the much needed help for us. I would now request the participants to start typing their questions, and if they want to ask the questions directly, they can unmute themselves and ask the question.
We don't have any questions right now.
If anybody wants to ask the question directly, he or she can ask.
Yes, someone asked that, can we work collaboratively with different colleges and universities also? I don't see any issue with that, because I certainly know when I was working in Punjab University, different colleges and universities, they were working together on on certain problems or certain research projects.
And somebody has asked, how different is the research work in US?
It's pretty much the same. It's just that what my experience say that you should know at least the basic understanding of almost every discipline, which could be difficult, but it's not impossible.
Is there any other question?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for a wonderful session. Ma'am, I have this question. If you could clarify a little more about how should the research paradigm look like? I mean, it did have different elements, and of course, I understood when you talked about compromise, creativity, and consistency, and there was this another word, collegiality, if I'm not wrong. But how is it connected with this leadership and team of investigators? It was all interconnected. If you could just shed a little more light on it.
Yeah, for sure. So
Thank
the
you.
leadership here does not mean, yeah. So leadership here does not mean only one person or only one discipline. Leadership here means that there's if you remember the first step that I've discussed, that having expertise of your own subject is really important, because that will be the
Yes, ma'am.
core requirement to lay down the stronger foundation for identifying the research problem. So leadership here means that there are like core experts from different disciplines who sit together and they work and together to identify the clear objectives or the concrete objectives that need to be addressed under this research problem, and how these leadership reach a compromise. Compromise means one discipline would not like to work in the public health department, and other would not like to work in the economics department or the science department. So they somehow reach a mutual ground in order to design the research and the different methodologies, so that everyone is on the same page. And since they have compromised for the research design and methodology, it would not be difficult to, actually perform the analysis, because there will be consistency, because everyone, after brainstorming sessions, they have and designing the methodology, they are working on the analysis. And then through creativity, if when you have the data and the information with you, so how to present that data, how could you use that information to really put it out in the real world, like what you will say it as a research outcome, that will require a lot of creativity, and again the brainstorming sessions. And those brainstorming sessions, team of investigators, they work in collegiality. Collegiality means with like really work together, integrate all those results, and then finally able to solve the research problem. I hope I have
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's clear. Thank you
answered your
so
question.
much.
You're
You have,
welcome.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you once again.
So is there any other question?
Hello.
Any question?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi,
Morning, ma'am.
good morning.
Ma'am,
I think it's
actually,
Kaibalya.
in the earlier presentation, you were saying I'm a research scholar actually in Utkal University. You are using that, one thing is, multidisciplinary, and
Right,
another is interdisciplinary. Okay.
right.
So, is there any differences between that or same thing?
That's what I mentioned about. That's why I showed that illustration about bread, loaf, and sandwiches. So multidisciplinary is that all the discipline and multi means many disciplines, they are working on one common research outcome. But the physics background person does not know what a chemistry background person is doing for that research problem. The chemistry background person does not know what a social science person is doing related to that research outcome. That is the multidisciplinary work. And that means various different disciplines, they are coming together, not coming together, they are working on their own on one common research outcome. In interdisciplinary, you know that what a physicist is doing, what a chemist is doing, what a social scientist is doing. So you are aware, you are integrating the outcomes, the research findings of one discipline into the other. So basically integrating the different disciplines, it's the interdisciplinary approach.
So,
I hope I have
ma'am,
answered, Kabul. Yeah.
yes, on that way, archaeology
Mhm.
actually, I am pursuing my PhD in archaeology department. So that on that
Okay.
way, archaeology department is interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary? Because personally, I am शायद मुझे ये पता ही नहीं था. I am using that, sometimes it is a multidisciplinary subject, sometimes it's a interdisciplinary subject. But today I got it.
But
There is a problem. There is a between two terminology.
it depends on Kabalia, what kind of research work you are doing in your, and did you mention the anthropology subject?
Archaeology.
Oh,
Is,
you're from the archaeology. So is it a like full-fledged program of archaeology, or it's part of geology department?
No, it's a independent department, and uh, we have work with it. Suppose we are excavating some sites, and suppose we are getting a
Yeah.
pollen, then we have to deal with botany department. And if you are
Then it's an interdisciplinary work. Yeah.
it's an
It's an
interdisciplinary.
interdisciplinary work. Yeah, because when you are digging out the sites and finding some fossils of plants or fossils of animals, you have to go to the zoology department and the botany department to help you, identify. And then you integrate those research findings and link it with your original subject. Because you are integrating and linking with your subjects, you will call it IDR, interdisciplinary research.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Is there any other question? So it seems like we have covered all the questions. I would now request Dr. Maninder Kaur to present a formal vote of thanks.
Am I audible, ma'am? Anjali, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Anjali. It's my privilege to present a formal vote of thanks to our honorable speaker. Ma'am, it was a very engrossing lecture and we learned a lot. I express my gratitude to you, ma'am. You answered all our questions and we had a very good interactive session with you. I would also like to thank the chairperson of the session, reviewers, and my fellow participants for being listeners, for being good listeners. Now all the participants are requested to join again